Hi.
Hello and welcome to Knock Knock Hi with the Glaucomfleckens. I am Will Flannery, also known as Dr. Glaucomflecken.
I am Kristen Flannery, also known as Lady Glaucomflecken.
Do you guys like money? Do you like money?
Sure. You need money.
You need money.
Yeah.
It's good to have money.
It is good to have money. It makes things easier.
We're talking
in
about
some ways.
money. We're talking about money today.
Mhm.
We are going to be talking to Jimmy Turner, who is the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of Attend, a financial platform for physicians. He is very much he runs a podcast. It's called Money Meets Medicine, and is the author of The Physician Philosopher's Guide to Personal Finance. So he's definitely in this world. We talk a lot about, why are like physicians so averse to like talking about money? I mean, I think everybody's kind of averse to talking about money, but doctors in particular, and he focuses on physician personal finance. And so,
which is not something you ever get to learn about.
Yeah, exactly. And so we talk about a variety of things, disability insurance, and we also start talking a little bit about the U.S. healthcare system with regard to private equity.
Yeah,
so
the P word.
Yeah, the bad word, private equity. If you're interested in our thoughts on that, you can expect
I think you just gave away your
later.
thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, do I like it or not? Who knows? You'll have to listen to find out. Maybe it's wonderful. Maybe it's something sent from hell. I don't know. But anyway, you have to listen. But this does bring up a video series that I am doing this month.
Yes, very timely
Yes.
coincidence here.
30 days of U.S. healthcare.
That's right.
So I spent pretty much all of August writing out all of these U.S. healthcare system related skits. And now every day I'm releasing one. And so that covers just everything from like deductibles and co-payments and but also things like private equity and insurance denials and vertical integration, just all kinds of stuff.
All the things that make U.S. healthcare so special.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And I'm doing it this way to just try to bring a lot of awareness and education. Also make people laugh, maybe cry a little bit.
Well, you laugh so you don't cry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so hopefully people are learning a thing or two from seeing all these videos. And I'm excited about it. Been working hard on it. And so I think so far it's going pretty great.
Yeah.
So
nice job.
Yeah. Thanks.
You didn't like that. You didn't like accepting a compliment there. Yeah, that made you uncomfortable.
I appreciate
You're like, thanks.
Thanks. Oh, a compliment. No, I appreciate that, especially coming from you. Thank you.
You're like, no, I appreciate that.
But let's talk. Let's get into it, should we?
Yeah.
Let's talk about finance.
Let's do it.
Oh, you ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
Here we
Are
go.
you?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Here he is, Dr. Jimmy Turner. All right, we're here with Jimmy Turner. Dr. Turner, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to talk with you again.
Yeah, likewise. Super excited to be here and to officially be on Knock Knock Hi.
Yeah, it's I came on your podcast not too long ago, and we talked about something that makes me and probably lots of physicians uncomfortable, which is money.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Why is that? What are we special as people in medicine, or is this just like kind of across the board? Everyone just like just money just makes people uncomfortable. I don't know if we're special or not.
Yeah,
we like to think we're special usually, but we might not be.
Yeah, no, that is a doctor thing to think we're special. But yeah, so it's interesting. Some of it certainly is just like general cultural stuff, right? Like you just don't talk about money, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion. Like those are some, taboo topics, right? But I will say that there are some unique things about doctors, right? One of them being that there's this idea in medicine that you can't go into medicine for any other reason other than altruism. And to talk about money means that you're making patient care or the business of medicine financially related, which is really unfortunate because, I've had opportunities to speak and teach about money for years now, and sometimes, I mean, it's not infrequent. It's an uphill battle, and people will say no. And when I ask them about it, they're like, "Well, what if we teach people the wrong thing?" Right? They're scared to death of it, which as an anesthesiologist, I find hilarious because like if we teach people the wrong thing about what I do, people die. But we're concerned about teaching them about money because God forbid they do a backdoor Roth IRA. And so it's
Right.
always been interesting to me. But yeah, it's taboo, and doctors' financial literacy is abysmal. And so I think people are also embarrassed to talk about something. You got a really intelligent group of people who, have to admit that they probably don't know much about something, which is pretty hard.
Yes. I know that my financial literacy coming out of college wasn't great. Part of the reason
Close to
why
zero.
part of the reason why I chose to go to Dartmouth for med school over Texas, where it was a public school for
In-state tuition.
in-state tuition.
Yeah.
I
You know,
chose $50,000 per year over $10,000 per
Well,
year.
you're welcome.
But that's okay. It was because I got to stay with my beautiful wife here. So
Yep. I knew nothing about it back then either. So, I think a lot of us come into medicine, graduate school, post college life knowing very little.
And I don't think people should be so ashamed of not knowing. I know with doctors that you pride yourself on being the smart one, or it's very competitive, so you can't ever let people know when you don't know something. But I don't think anyone really knows anything about money, just generally speaking, because we don't get taught that in school. Very best you might get like a macro or a microeconomics class in high school, and then
how
that's the
useful is that,
extent of
though?
it. Yeah,
Right?
exactly. There's
Supply and
no
demand.
personal finance. There's
Yeah.
no
What do you remember from your macroeconomics class?
right.
And as a high school senior.
Nothing.
So yeah,
Absolutely
so
nothing.
I think most people are in the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because when they look at this, the American Psychological Association does study every year or two, and they basically show that the number one stressor in all American households is money. And yet we don't do much about it. And that's probably why, right? Like we don't learn about the stuff in
Right.
high school or college or, I mean, if your parents didn't teach you, there's a really good chance that you know absolutely nothing about this subject.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's super common.
Now you have an interesting path to get to where you are now, where you're the chief medical officer, co-founder of Attend, this financial platform for physicians, and but a lot of your story also probably a lot of people can relate to, and it's you label it a part of your story as this arrival fallacy, which is a term I'd never heard before. But I absolutely relate to it, and I think a lot of
Hmm.
people, especially people in medicine, can relate to this idea. So, could you just tell us a little bit about that? First of all, did you coin that term? Can I
No,
give you that credit? No.
I wish you could. It's a Harvard psychologist, Tal Ben Shahar, who
All right,
coined that
there you
one.
go.
But yeah, no, it's a super interesting concept, and most of the time I talk about it, doctors are like, oh my gosh, this is me, and actually I
Right.
think
Hmm.
a lot of people, even outside of medicine, but yeah, it's basically this idea that once you attain a certain goal or you reach a certain milestone, that's when you're going to be happy, right? And so there's this arrival that you're anticipating, and everything that you're going through in life, you're like, this is going to be worth it when I get there. And so the medical journey, right? You're like in college, you're working, looking forward to getting to medical school, and you get into medical school, and that's supposed to be the answer, and then it's super hard, and you're drinking, information through a fire hydrant or a fire hose, and all of a sudden you're like, well, but when I become a doctor and I get to residency, that's when things are going to be better. I get to get rid of the short white coat if your school does that. Mine did,
Yep.
and get to don the long white coat. And
Still have mine. Still have
y-
my short white
you
coat.
didn't burn it.
Are you kidding me? What if TikTok had been around? Or I had no idea. Like now, I use it on a lot of my videos. So
Hey,
Mostly he was
smart.
just lazy and it worked out well.
there you go.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people do interesting things with it. You made videos from it.
That's right.
But yeah, and then you get burned out in residency, and you're like, you know what? When I make an attending physician paycheck, that's when it's going to be worth it. And then it's
Yeah.
not, right? And you're like, when I buy the house and I buy the car, and so it really is more like what Gertrude Stein said, right? When she said there is no there. Once you get there, this idea of everlasting fulfillment is a bit of a fictional narrative that unfortunately we tell ourselves and then set ourselves up for this arrival fallacy, and it's called a fallacy for a reason. It's not
Mhm.
real. And so you basically look for the next thing. You're constantly looking for the next thing. So instead of enjoying the journey, you're focused on the destination. And unfortunately, the destination is not what makes people happy.
Right, because when you get there, there's always, good things and bad things about every situation, every phase of life, right? Like then when you get to the destination, you are in an attending position. You look back on the med school days, and you have all this nostalgia, and you think, oh, those were the good old days. So I think even during the harder phases, there are some really good things about those phases. And if you focus on those and enjoy those, then it's more fun. And it's maybe, I don't know if it would attenuate the arrival fallacy at all, but it would at least make your life a little better in the meantime.
Yeah, yeah. I think switching to that narrative of enjoying the process is really important. And until I did that, I really had a hard time being happy. And so I was always looking for something else. Even when I finished medicine, became an attending, I was like, oh, when it's associate professor, or when I start this business, this is going to give me the financial independence that I need, and then I'll be happy. And it turns out that, it really is that way, looking at your current situation, instead of looking up the mountain and where you want to be, looking back down and saying, hey, those were some pretty fun memories and look how far I've come. But shifting that
Right.
perspective is really challenging for a lot of people.
That being said, if anybody listening does know how to achieve everlasting fulfillment, please reach out to us.
Knock, knock,
knock,
hi
hi
at human-content.com.
that's right. Please, we would love to know.
I love it.
And you and I, Jimmy, we've talked about this before, offline, but we have something in common that is financially related that I think a lot of people have to go through in medicine, which is thinking about getting disability insurance. And the thing we have in common is that neither of us were able to get that.
Yeah, we both failed.
We both failed for probably very similar, or not I mean, for medical reasons, obviously. I had a cancer diagnosis early on, and I guess, tell us, I think it would be helpful for people to hear this, especially, people just starting their medical careers, about what you went through with disability insurance.
Yeah,
And why it's important, first of all. That's another thing.
Yeah. So, I would argue that disability insurance is the number one financial task for a physician. And the reason why is because, I can literally teach you anything you want to know about investing or paying down debt. But if you don't have an income, it turns out that doesn't really matter, right? That knowledge shows,
Right.
it's completely useless. And so, yeah, for me, I didn't know anything about money up until I was, basically finishing fellowship. And so this happened during my fourth year of medical school. My wife and I, we had our first kid, Grace. She's now 12, which is insane. But when Grace was born, my wife and I were like, hey, let's do adult things and get term life insurance, right? And had no idea who to talk to. And so it turned out that one of the brothers from my medical school classmates was an insurance agent. I was like, oh, perfect. I can trust this guy. And so approached him, and he's like, yeah, absolutely. We can get you term life insurance, but you should also get disability. And remember, I know nothing about money at this point. So I'm like, I don't have an income. I don't exactly understand why I need this. But you're the professional here. I said no a few times, got talked into it. And long story short, I've got an essential tremor, take propranolol for it. Got diagnosed hilariously while I was doing a lumbar puncture as a fourth year med student, and my hands were shaking a lot. And the neurology resident's
no.
like, hey, your hands shake a lot. I was like, don't everybody's hands shake when they're nervous? He's like, yeah, but that's a lot. And so got the propranolol, treated it. But the problem is that, I basically got denied disability insurance because I had a medical problem. And with that at the time seemed like not a big deal. I know nothing about money, but I get to training. And then there's something called the guaranteed standard issue policy, which fancy words to mean that they don't care about your medical history. You don't have to go through underwriting. They don't look at your medical history at all. The only stipulation is you can't have been disabled and you can't have been denied. And so since I got denied as a fourth year medical student because an insurance agent was trying to make money off of me, to this day, I can't get disability insurance. And so, and that's one of the reasons why if you have a medical history and you're in training, you have to check into the guaranteed policy because it's super important. And it's one of the only ways you can get it if you have medical issues like I did. And so, yeah, so to this day, I can't get it. I am so uninsurable at this point that it is not funny, but kind of funny.
Hey,
Yeah, 2 cancer diagnoses and a cardiac arrest. You want to talk about uninsurable?
join the club, man.
We're in the uninsurable club. You and
Yeah.
me, co-founders.
Co-founders, yes. What is the earliest people can get disability insurance? Because that's one of those things that you need to buy it before you need it, not when you need it. So when is the first chance people can buy it?
Yeah, people ask me all the time, like, when should I get disability insurance? Now I say the day before you get disabled. But since you don't know when that's going to be, it's when you
Right.
have an income. You can certainly buy it before then, but then you're paying for disability, premiums with loans, right? So as soon as you become, someone in training and you have an income, disability insurance is something that should be on your radar because you're always the most insurable as you're ever going to be right now, right? And Will, you didn't expect to get cancer. I didn't expect to get Graves' disease and anxiety that was associated with that after my tremor. Turns out propranolol masks Graves' disease. When I ran out of that, that was a story too. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so when you get an
That's
income,
a step one question, I think.
oh man, yeah, I was on a golf course. I had a panic attack with my buddy Mike, and so when that happened, I like literally just no propranolol. Like I'm super anxious, like just
Yeah.
impending doom. So I had to shotgun a beer, and that was my immediate treatment, my medical diagnosis and treatment at the time
Yeah,
on a
your
golf course.
professional opinion.
Yeah,
Shotgun a beer.
yeah, shotgun a beer if you don't have propranolol. That's the solution.
We do not give medical advice on this podcast.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, so as soon as you have an income, I mean, that's when it needs to be on your radar, because that's when you have an income producing asset to protect.
Quick follow-up question to that. How did the lumbar puncture go?
The resident's like, I mean, you got it. It was good. I mean, I don't remember if it was like a champagne tap. No
Hey, you got
RBCs
it.
in the fluid, but it's hilarious because now like I'm a regional anesthesiologist. I do spinals and thoracic epidurals
Yeah.
like all of the time, and so, but yeah, it was successful. So that
Maybe a
counts.
Merlot tap,
That's right.
something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty bloody.
That's right.
Oh boy.
I'm just kidding. I don't remember it all.
Yeah, that's one of the things you probably blocked out of your memory
Yeah.
quite a while ago. Well, I want to take advantage of having someone that actually knows something about like money and finance here. And so it seems like even more so now, there are some financial things in medicine that are like happening. And it's one thing is, well, the first thing I wanted to bring up is this issue of student loan repayment, which is the now starting to, after the deferments were going on during the pandemic, right? It's going to be kicking in again. Is that right?
Yep.
What's the date on that? Isn't that, it's like later
It's this fall. It was September. Now it's potentially October.
Oh, they might push it back a little bit more.
Yeah, but September was the official word originally.
And so do you have any advice for trainees who are kind of, that's about to kick back in and potentially be a big change in life?
Yeah, I mean, one of the pieces of advice I'd tell you is to not sit on it. And the reason being is that when forbearance ends, and this is true going forward, right? So if you're an intern from July till January, you have a 6-month grace period. But once that grace period ends and forbearance ends, coming this fall, you get put in what's called the standard replacement, or excuse me, the standard repayment program. And so what happens there is you basically get like a 4-figure check in the mail, or bill in the mail, and they're like, hey, you owe us $2,500, because it basically is figured out by how much would you have to pay your own debt off in 10 years, right? And so the people that don't
Yikes.
enroll in an income driven repayment program before these payments start back, and who have been in forbearance and were never in a program, they will get a multiple 4-figure bill in the mail potentially that wipes out their entire residency income for the month. And
Right,
so
if not more.
yeah, so exactly. And so that's fair. So don't sit on it. Make a plan, right? And so the Biden administration came out with this new SAVE plan, saving for a valuable education, and in order to simplify things. And unfortunately, student loans still after this plan are incredibly complicated, right? So if
Right.
you are a single resident who is more than 12 months away from graduating and you don't have any outside income, SAVE is going to be the right plan 95, 97, 99% time. I mean, the vast majority, right? But if you're in any of those complicated situations, you're married, your spouse has loans, your spouse has income, you live in a community property state, like any of these things can kind of make it more complicated. And so you either need to become like a miniature student loan expert and, do it yourself and figure it out, which is fine, certainly a route, or you need to get help with it. But either way, the ostrich, like, putting your head in the sand approach which is what most doctors do with most financial topics, including yours truly. I forbeared on my debt for 5 years, watched it increase by 150% because no one taught me about money back then. And so now I know better and tell people, hey, don't be like me. Don't screw up your disability insurance and don't screw up your student loans, because I did both.
That's two things right there. There you go. We're giving a lot of good advice. Are there any other big ones? like the big mistakes that I'm
yeah,
asking mainly for
yes.
myself as well,
Yes.
honestly.
So one of the biggest mistakes people make, well, there's a few. I mean, could go over several, but one is not believing in public service loan forgiveness. There's a lot of people out there like, this is not going to work. It's not going to happen. When I get there, the government's not going to forgive my debt. And, I always say to that a few things. One is that there's a master promissory note that you signed. It's a contract basically between you and the government that says that PSLF is going to exist and they're going to provide it for you. Most people get grandfathered into changes. And then in addition to that, if you really don't believe it, right, just save up money on the side. And if you get forgiven, great. If you don't, you're closer to retirement. Fantastic. So that's one. The second one, and this is devastating. I have a friend who owes $400,000 out of his pocket because he refinanced instead of pursuing public service loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, well-meaning, really good people, like, hey, I had a really good experience with company X, and so you should refinance with them because I really thought that experience was good. And what they don't realize, what they're doing is saying refinance your student loans, which for a lot of people now, particularly with SAVE coming out, is not the right thing to do. And so they'll refinance their debt privately, not realize that forgiveness is no longer an option. They've burned that bridge. It's a catastrophic, multiple six-figure mistake for many people.
Yeah, because they're chasing after the lower interest rates. Although I don't know if you can get
It's not
those
so
now.
tempting
Which
right now.
sounds like good advice, but it turns out it's not if you don't know all of the little.
Yeah, and there's lots of little things, right? Because a lot of people say, oh, are you getting forgiveness or are you going into private practice? And it's like, well, that's actually a false dichotomy, right? Because 80% of hospitals qualify for public service loan forgiveness. So you can be in private practice, but if you're employed by the hospital, right, then you can
there
still
you go.
qualify. And so there's all these little nuances and caveats, which is why you can either learn all this stuff or get somebody
Right.
to help you with it. But you have to make a plan.
So make sure, bottom line is, before you do any refinancing, any changes to your student loan situation, find out if you're working for a nonprofit or whatever a qualifying organization is.
Institution, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What advice
Absolutely.
do you have for physician TikTok YouTubers?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know,
Physician, TikTok,
Just
YouTubers.
curious, theoretically.
Yeah. Don't spend it all. Don't spend it all in one place.
that's
Yeah,
right.
no, that's I mean, it's really interesting
Don't
having
spend it all on X. Is that
Yes.
So it's only
Yes.
$8 a month. I think I can afford that, but
Yeah. Yeah. I can't bring myself to call it X. It just feels weird.
I know
No.
it felt weird saying it. I don't know how I feel about
At
that.
first, I didn't know what you were talking about. I was like, oh yeah, X.
He's talking about
That's the
drugs,
thing.
which also don't
Yeah,
spend
right.
it on.
That's right. That's right. No, but it's non-clinical income is actually becoming a bigger and bigger thing, right? There's
It
Facebook groups
is.
with 100,000 doctors in it that focus exclusively on that.
Everyone's talking
And-
about the side gigs.
Mhm.
Yeah, the side gigs, they're a big deal. And so it is interesting watching what people do with that money. Some people, they go part-time, right? So, and that's certainly the route that I took, increased, non-clinical income outside of medicine. And, right now I practice 2 days a week doing anesthesia. And amazingly, I like my job again, right? And so
You're just doing cataracts, right? That's
exactly. I just do
100%.
40,000 pre-op notes a day for just the eye docs. That's exactly right.
it.
It's an anesthesiologist's favorite job.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. If you like doing paperwork and your hand, cramping,
But
just cover a couple eye rooms.
But I mean, what is it? I don't know. What does it say about the status of just being in medicine when that's such a big focus now for so many people? Is I got to find some other stream of income so that I can not work in medicine as often as I am now. Like,
Yeah.
that's not great.
No, it's not. I mean, the burnout numbers are super, super high. And it's actually really interesting because, we're talking about personal finance and burnout. They're actually linked, right? So the higher student loan burdens you have, the more burned out you are. And then there's all these other, aspects of medicine that are burning doctors out too. And I really think that a large part of it's related to an attack on autonomy. We don't have the ability to, a lot of us don't have the ability to kind of dictate our own schedule. We're missing T-ball games or recitals or, dinner with our partner or, even like professional responsibilities at work. Like, how do you do your job? And you have to check this box and write that note and build this way. It's
Right.
really, yeah, it's hard. And I mean, the evidence is there. People are pursuing side gigs. I mean, it reminds me of that quote, right? That an entrepreneur is the only person who will work 80 hours for themselves in order not to work 60 hours for someone else.
Yes.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I know you'd probably relate to that if I had to
Yeah,
guess,
I
but
do.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to pursue internet comedian ophthalmology, I'd be happy to have
your
somebody.
partner.
else, a partner doing that stuff with me. Um, Another thing that I've seen recently a lot of commentary about is private equity.
Mm.
Hmm.
And this is a touchy subject for a lot of people in medicine,
Yeah.
but I think it's an increasingly important thing for people to be aware of
And
to
related to
understand.
this issue of autonomy.
Exactly. Yeah. So actually, you know what? Let's take a quick break and then let's come back and we'll talk about private equity. Hey, Christian, you know what this is?
Stethoscope.
Yeah, it's not just any stethoscope. It's the Echo Core 500 digital stethoscope with 3-lead ECG.
That's pretty
I
fancy.
didn't even know they could do that. They've
Yeah.
combined the ECG, the little
Yeah,
tracing
the
thing.
danger squiggles.
Yeah, the danger into a stethoscope.
That's pretty handy.
And it's also got 40 times noise amplification, noise cancellation, and also a fancy little display right here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's so cool. And so honestly, if I had something like this in med school, like I would not have been yelled at by as many cardiologists as I
That would
was.
have been nice.
Yeah, it would have been
Mhm.
really nice. We have a special offer for our US listeners. Visit echohealth.com/KKH and use code KNOCK50 to experience Echo's Core 500 digital stethoscope technology. That's EKO Health/KKH and use KNOCK50 to get a 75-day risk-free trial and free case and free shipping with this exclusive offer. Hey, Kristen, can I interest you in a Demodex mite?
No, you may not.
You know what these little guys do?
What?
They cause Demodex Blepharitis, which makes your eyelids like red, irritated, itchy.
That's gross.
Well, you can get checked out. Your eye doctor can look and see if you have them.
My eye doctor is currently covered in them.
And I can find out for you.
Oh, good.
To find out more about Demodex, go to eyelidcheck.com. Again, that's EYELID check.com to get more information about Demodex Blepharitis. Don't get freaked out. Get checked out. All right, we are back with Dr. Jimmy Turner. And Jimmy, the reason I want to talk about private equity is because it seems like every month there's a new private equity firm going bankrupt.
Mm.
And we're seeing this now in emergency medicine.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, it's there was Envision, I think, is one of them, and the name escapes me for the other one. But there are these big groups that are they're running out of money and they're filing for bankruptcy. And so, can you just help the listeners out, because you're the finance guy here? Just what exactly do I mean when I say like private equity acquisitions? What is this?
Yeah, so it is, and I'll readily admit, because I'm always happy to admit when I don't know something. So
Yeah.
branching outside the personal finance space a little bit, right? But this is when companies that are not publicly traded, a PE firm, basically says, hey, we want to come in, we want to buy your practice, and they end up trying to structure things in a way that allows them to reap the most profit, right, while reducing expenses and at the cost of often medical
Mhm.
care. And so with that, the doctor that is working at said practice, who's likely a partner, ends up taking, some money home because of that
Yep.
deal, because they're paying the owners of the practice, which are the partners. And so, for the people that are in the practice, naturally there's a very large financial incentive to sell it, but at the expense that you're dealing with the devil a little bit, because on the back end, your job's probably going to look a lot different than it does right now.
Right.
And so, the financial ramifications, and you kind of have to wonder, like, is this about what we've been talking about before, where, low financial literacy, doctors don't save a lot of money. Only 10% of doctors have more than $5 million. We talk about how much that would give you every year in retirement. But, suffice it to say, it's, maybe enough
Yeah.
for some doctors and maybe not enough for others. And so when someone comes along and offers this very large sum of money to privately buy this company and to own the equity of it, to become the majority owner or the entire owner, they now get to make the decisions about the company once they own 51%.
Right.
And so it is an interesting phenomenon. And actually in anesthesia, this is actually, a really interesting thing, not just from the private equity side, but there are also practices that are owned by those, large organizations. And this has happened twice in North Carolina. So I practice in North Carolina, where a group who is employed by one of those large groups, so let's say, Mednax and Vision, like a very large group, whatever, um, and they have a contract with these hospitals, and the hospital says, hey, we want to renegotiate the contract. And they're like, yeah, we're not really interested. And they're like, no, like we really want to renegotiate these contracts. And the large group's like, no, like we're not going to do that. And they said, fine, your contract's gone. Well, all those docs work for that large company. And so they now live in a city in which they can't practice in the hospitals because that contract is gone, but their employer is this like, cloud service that doesn't really exist in that place.
Wow.
And they can enforce the non-compete. Right. And so now you have doctors that it's happened in Charlotte, it's happened in Raleigh, that live in a city that are still anesthesiologists that theoretically could still provide care, but their large organization lost their contract, so they don't have a job. So there's a lot of these strange things in medicine, private equity coming in, these large organizations that, don't really fight for the doctor and don't let them go when things don't, go south. Huge economic pressures.
It seems to me from an outside perspective, and you can tell me if this is an oversimplification or not, but it seems to me like, a private equity buyout, they come to you and they offer to what would it be, acquire your company, that would make financial sense for, maybe people who are at the later stages of their career nearing retirement, because you can have that lump sum right before retirement. And then if you're retired, you don't have to worry about the after effects of what the company is going to come in and do. Right. But that for anyone who's not there yet, it maybe makes less financial sense for those individuals. Right. And the further away you are from that, maybe the less sense it might make for you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think so.
I think Will can talk to you a little bit, but they normally make you stay for a little bit, right, Will?
I think they do, because what they don't want is to spend like 20 million on this practice and then have everybody retire, right? So the way it typically works is they will offer you the big sum of money, and then they will let you buy back shares of the company. So that you still have a little skin in the game. You're still invested in the success of the practice. And that's how they sell. That's how they try to get kind of mid-career or early career physicians on board. But still, you're not owning a majority of the practice. And so, yes, you do have that equity in the company still, but you're still not the one who gets to make all the decisions.
So what you're gaining financially, you're kind of sacrificing in autonomy.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the trade-off, and why, a lot of, I've certainly heard anytime I put something out there about private equity, I've done some videos about, Bartholomew Banks, private equity. Who and it seems like every time I put a video about it, I get an email or message from somebody who's either a med student or a resident or early career, and they're like, so they're concerned. They're like, this is scary, especially in certain specialties. Ophthalmology is one of them, dermatology. There are certain specialties that are more attractive to private equity. A lot of ones that have a little bit more like cash pay options. They're, perceived as they're just a little bit more lucrative specialties that are obviously going to attract more private equity. And so you see the specialties that have the most private equity in them. It's like dermatology is like top of the list. Ophthalmology is up there as well. Anesthesiology is a big one. And so, young people coming in, they're concerned. They're worried about this because the worst case scenario, right, is the practice gets sold up underneath you, and you're
so
now
in academics. Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. So in academics, like my residents, whether it's a large organization buying a practice or private equity, but either way, losing basically their partnership track. Like they've got a 2 or 3 year partnership track in anesthesia, and then it gets bought 2 years and 11 months into your partnership, and so. It's actually something I talk to a lot of my trainees about who are in that situation. They go look at this group and like, oh, it's a great job. Like it's got everything that I want. And I'll ask them about it. What happens if they get bought out? I'm like, well, they say that's not going to happen. I'm like, okay, well, negotiations 101, right? So someone
Mhm.
says that, there's no way that's going to happen. It's like, well, hey, that's great. Then you should have no problem adding this language to my contract since it's
Mhm.
not going to happen, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I can't tell you how often people have come back and after that it's hilarious because I'll be like, hey, how'd that conversation go? And they're like, I'm not allowed to talk about it. And
Oh no.
I'm like, I guess it went well. Like, no, like it's confidential. They got what they wanted. They're happy. Now they can't disclose it because they don't want everybody else finding out.
Right.
But yeah,
Uh,
it's a huge concern, right? And like even like just work in there at least. Like, hey, if you get bought out, I've been there for a year, I get a third, right? In 2 years, I get two thirds. I mean, try to get something, but like signing a contract nowadays where you have years to partner and potentially a buy-in, and it gets bought out before that happens. I mean, that is
A lot could happen
insane.
in 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Before the decision is made to buy into a practice. So yeah, it can be a terrifying situation for young people. But it's also just fundamentally the idea of private equity coming in and buying up all these medical practices.
yeah, what does it
Um,
mean for patient care?
yeah, and
Mm.
that's the ultimate question, I think, for a lot of people is because for like physician-owned practices or where physicians are running the show, at least there's something in that person that got them into medicine that's not financially related,
Right.
right? Like they
Right.
they really
The
do
Hippocratic
care.
Oath is in there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. It's still sometimes it's a big part. Sometimes it's diminished and it's just a tiny part, but it's still there. It's still there. That motivation should still be there somewhere. But now you have these corporations that are like purely profit driven, right? They're coming
Yeah.
in and have totally different motivations. And I think that's, on a philosophical level, kind of the a big part of this, the frustration
Yeah.
and the conflict.
And it's not that they're like evil people or something. It's just that fundamentally these are different
Yeah,
institutions with different
they
purposes,
want to
right?
make
A
money.
healthcare institution is for patient care. A business, by definition, needs to make a profit and has shareholders or whatnot that they are obligated to provide a profit for. So
Yeah, it's really interesting because it actually reminds me of I think it was Milgram who did this shock experiment,
yes.
and yeah, and so if you're familiar with that, the
You have
idea
a lot
that
of psychology.
so I was a
I have a
philosophy major.
psychology background, so I'm
Yeah,
picking up a lot
What
of
is
that.
yeah,
the shock experiment?
Yeah, go ahead and explain the shock experiment.
yeah. So no, that's great. Yeah, so I was a philosophy major, and I love thinking about how people think. So, but yeah, so the shock experiment basically did a few different variations of it. But the couple that I really liked, I should not say liked, that is the wrong word
That were
to use,
interesting.
that I found fascinating, although ethically problematic.
There we
Big
go.
fan
Right.
of shock therapy.
IRBs
Huh?
were not a thing back
Yeah,
then.
yeah. This would not fly past the IRB these days. So they would take people and in the first iteration have them kind of physically put that person's hand on a shock plate, and then they'd walk over and they'd have to administer shocks. And the shock board would be labeled from like mild to moderate to severe to like XXX, like lethal. And interestingly, people would go all the way up the board if they had an authoritarian figure standing behind them that basically said, "Hey, the research has got to go on." And the person would have to try to quit 3 or 4 times, even though they were told at the beginning they can stop at any point. But because they had this speaking of white coats, they had this person in a white coat authority figure telling you have to keep going for like the equivalent of like what's $20 today. People walked in and found out that they would end somebody else's life if an authority figure told you to. And the second thing was that they did other iterations where they separated people. Okay, you don't have to touch their hand anymore. There's no more physical contact. We're going to put you in the same room. You can see and you can hear them, right? And that rate went up because there's disconnection. They put them in a different room. Now they can only hear them. They can't see them. And so every step along the way, if an authority figure told you to do something, in other words, good people will do bad things in bad environments. And the further separation you have from the people you're interacting with, the more likely you are to cause harm. And so when you're talking about a private equity company who exists God knows where, has never seen a patient, doesn't even know the doctor that they, work with supposedly. Like if they passed
Hmm.
you on the street, they would not know you, right?
Yeah.
And so there's like 57 degrees of separation, and they're driven by profit. And so naturally, good people, I bet the people, if you met those people at the top of those companies and you had dinner with them, you wouldn't be like, this is the worst human being I've ever experienced
Right.
in my life. But
Yeah.
because they're separated from the people that are supposed to be getting helped at the bottom of that, separation,
Right.
interaction, relationship, they will do harmful things, which is extremely scary.
Maybe we actually do need IRBs.
Oh, how about
guess
that?
that's-
For
Yeah.
that's
private
probably-
equity, we should create private equity IRBs.
Yes.
That's right. And then just wrapping this up, going back to what I was saying initially with what I've seen lately, a few different private equity companies that own a large swath of emergency departments. It's obvious that this model, it's working better in certain areas than others. I mentioned dermatology, ophthalmology, where it's gained a foothold and seems to be here to stay. But in other areas, you can't just treat medicine the same way. And in emergency medicine, you have to see everybody,
Yeah.
no matter what. And a lot of what these
Tala.
private equity companies do is they'll favor certain insurances, or they'll de-incentivize people from seeing low income patients, and you can't do that in emergency medicine. And so you get into a lot of trouble, like ethically
Yep.
and also financially, because you're just starting to lose money. And so I think we're already seeing that it doesn't work in something like healthcare.
Yeah.
Like with something that's so important to patient care. The model, it's not working out. So
No, I couldn't agree more.
I don't know. It's we'll see where it goes. I don't know. It's kind of a depressing conversation, but I haven't
I thought
I haven't been able to talk about this on the podcast
sad.
yet. That's right.
No,
All right,
it's an important conversation to have, though.
It is, for sure. Before we get into our game that I've prepared for you today, I do want you to tell one of these stories that you sent us, which I think a lot of people can relate to, about your time as an intern.
Yeah. So when I was an intern, right? So I've already told I'm just producing a massive amount of confidence in my clinical ability, because I've already told my lumbar, shaking hands puncture story. And now I'm talking about a central line story that I botched. But yeah, so we had a patient come in, and the patient was very sick. She was septic. And, long story short, I'd never put a central line in before. And so I'd built this thing up to be like this procedure that, like, an anesthesiologist, of course, like, can throw a line in like 4 seconds, because that's what we do. Like, we put lines and tubes in and, stabilize and save people. That's literally what my job is. And so at the time, I'm like, oh man, like, I have to be really, really good at this. And so I'd seen people do a few, but I hadn't done one yet. This was my very first one. And so we took a look at the patient's neck, and, the upper level's like, yeah, like the carotid's like right there. Like, that's probably not the best one for you to do to start with. Let's look at the groin. And so we look at the femoral site, and I mean, this thing is like, you could drive a Mack truck through it. It is absolutely massive. And so, she's like, you could do that one. And so I put the probe on, like, gown up. I'm like all sweaty. And of course, I'm nervous. And so, like, my gloves are sticking to my skin. I can, like, barely get them on, and do the central line, get access. I get some blood, and I'm like, oh, great. Like, this is going well. I thread the wire, and then I dilate. And then when I pull the dilator out, I take everything with me. And so what I didn't tell you is that this patient's INR was like 47. I mean, it was super therapeutic, like way off the charts.
Yes.
It was not 47 to be fair. It was just very high.
I know that's
what's
way too
INR?
high. INR is your ability to clot your blood, basically.
Yeah. So it's a normalized ratio. Tells you about blood clotting. So this patient's blood does not clot, right? And I just put a giant hole in her femoral vein.
Oh,
And so naturally, my upper level's like, well, hold some pressure on that, and you'll never do that again, And so, like, naturally, I held pressure, but, like, I was like mortified, because the first time I'd ever done it. I stayed 2 hours after my emergency medicine shift. It was on while I was in the emergency department to do this procedure. And so, like, man, like, I turned that, like, one situation into meaning, like, I'm going to be a terrible anesthesiologist, and, like, generalized it to, mean this one instant defined who I was as a physician, created
this
some
one
massive...
first time you've tried something.
I know.
Yeah.
That's how you think, though.
Yeah. But nobody talks about medicine that way, right? Like, so now when my residents make mistakes, like, knowing what I went through and how humiliating that was, I was telling me, I'm like, personally, like, I never make mistakes. And, like, I'm joking with them, right? Like, I make mistakes all the time, still to this day. And, but because no one normalizes that, it is challenging, because perfection's expected. But we're human, right? And so, I made this mistake. I generalized it, catastrophized, stayed up all night, like just perseverating on it, super healthy.
Yeah,
I've
right.
seen that before.
I know.
Yeah,
My
it's a thing.
when I was first learning cataract surgery, within my first 10 cases that I did alone or with an attending, but I did the whole case myself, I had 2 complications.
Oh,
And I was like convinced I was never going to do so. I'm like, I'm done. There's no way. No one's ever going to hire me. I'm going to go to jail, all the things. And
you could turn
so,
Dr. Death.
that's
You
right.
see
Yeah.
that podcast?
Might as well be Dr. Death here. So
Yeah.
it's,
But those mistakes, so they do stick with you. I've seen, even
oh
once you're an
yeah.
attending or
I mean,
whatever,
we're
like,
talking about it like how many years later, right?
yes,
Oh, I remember.
exactly.
And the funny part is that like my nickname at work is Dory, like the forgetful fish. Like, I'm extremely forgetful. And so it just kind of like goes to show like you always remember the bad ones, right? Like
Oh
I
yeah.
don't remember
Right.
every single save I've ever had or difficult airway I've ever had that, I was successful at, getting. But man, I remember the failures.
Yeah. Well, and
Absolutely.
you know what? Not to take everything back to private equity, but I can't help it here. I mean, that is what you're talking about of that distance between, right? When you're the one touching that patient, doing the procedures, it does stick with you. You think about that person that night. You wonder the next morning how they doing. You go and you check the chart. I mean, it's on your mind. It's on your conscience. So, when you're in that situation, you're going to take better care of the person. You're going to care more about their outcomes, rather than just making a profit. So I think even
Yeah.
that story, goes to show that the more distance you have between yourself and the patient, it might not be a great thing.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That is 100% true in my experience.
Well, I'm glad you ended up still pursuing anesthesiology despite
Yeah. It
that
turns out I don't suck
experience.
at my job. Like I
Yeah.
thought I would.
It turns out you can be really good at your
And
job.
practice really works.
Yeah.
All right, so I devised this little short game that we're going to play. I try to relate it to what the person's like an expert in.
I'm a little
and-
nervous. I'm not going to lie.
well, don't be, because I was like, okay, we got to make it like financial related, but then I remembered like I don't have any like financial knowledge, and so I kind of hedged a little bit, and so we're gonna play a game that is called personal loans. Personal loans.
Got it. Personal
Um,
loans.
All right, so so for this game, we're talking about borrowing or loaning personal items. All right, not money, personal
Okay.
items.
All right.
All right, so for each of these scenarios, Jimmy, you are going to answer if you would, in fact, loan or borrow that item. Okay?
Let's do it.
All right, first one. This is easy. Would you borrow your kid's spoon to have a bite of their ice cream sundae?
100%.
100%. So would I. Absolutely.
I would prefer my own, but if there weren't one available, then yeah,
you would
sure.
borrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Would you loan your toothbrush to your spouse if they forgot theirs while traveling?
This is a really interesting one because I kid you not. All right, I probably shouldn't admit this publicly, but we were at my in-laws literally like 2 weeks ago, and maybe even more recent than that. And I brushed my teeth first night. Like I don't know what happened. Like the toothbrush monster came along and like devoured my toothbrush. I have no idea what happened to it. And so would I loan it? Probably not, but I definitely borrowed one,
There you go.
I
which is
gotta say,
gross, by the way. That is
I would
disgusting.
not loan you my
You wouldn't?
toothbrush. No,
You wouldn't do that for
I
me?
wouldn't. No, that's disgusting. Like your toothbrush, it really gets in there. Like
Yeah.
your mouth is just
I don't
not your
disagree with
mouth,
you.
but people's mouths
Desperate
are
times
disgusting.
call for desperate measures.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I would say, especially because it's a toothbrush,
Yeah.
I would say, let's say we're at a hotel, I would say just go to the front desk and get a toothbrush. Or I would say go to any corner of a city and find
What if we're
somewhere selling a toothbrush.
What if we're camping? And
Then I would say use your finger or go find a stick.
a stick. Well,
stab
first of
yourself in
all,
the mouth
you would
with a
never
stick.
go camping. You would
That
not.
is true.
Yeah.
I hate camping. I know that's going to be a controversial opinion,
That's
but
okay.
I do not like it.
Had to come out eventually. All right. So there, we're a little bit split on that one. Okay, that's good. Would you let your friend borrow your deodorant at the gym?
probably
we're
would be
talking
my
pits,
preference.
Hmm.
Yeah.
not mouth.
That's a little, it's funny. That seems like it should be less gross, but I don't think I would.
Oh, really? I
There you go.
have many times lent
Maybe it's
my
because it's my
deodorant to
friend and not
people.
my spouse. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
Could be. Also, men's pits are more disgusting than women's pits,
They're just-
generally
Yeah.
speaking.
Generally,
How
they're
smelly is my
hairier.
friend? How smelly is my
Yeah.
friend? That's probably gonna be the question that's
Yeah.
gonna make or break it.
And how wet? How sweaty are they?
I have certainly borrowed your
Yeah,
deodorant against your will.
yes, that's the key. I was going to say, I think it's more
I
like
did not tell you.
stealing.
I did not tell you. And I made sure I didn't leave any hair behind.
Well, and I bet you smelled like a delightful flower all day.
I did. It was
Probably.
it was lovely.
It is interesting how they smell very different.
They do.
They do,
They do
yeah.
very much. Okay. Would you loan a fellow anesthesiologist your phone who forgot theirs so they could have something to do during a 6-hour case?
So they can pay Candy Crush.
That's right.
Okay, got it.
So
Actually,
you
listened to a
have to
recent
go
episode of
6
yours.
hours without your
That's
phone.
right. They said, Jimmy, I'm desperate. I don't have my phone. I left it at home. Can I borrow yours for this case? Because what am I gonna do? While they're running bowel for 3 hours.
I think that what I've noticed in my life is that the moments that I am happiest are generally when I am without my phone. Or don't have the ability to use my phone. So say I'm playing a sport or I'm so engaged in something that like I'm not even paying attention to it. So, for the welfare of my friend and for my own happiness, I probably would let them borrow my phone. Yeah.
It would have to
think
be
so.
someone you very much trust to have access to your phone.
As long as I have access to the internet in other ways, like
Yes.
my email potentially,
Yeah.
that I could occasionally check.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
He's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
I
he's
don't
a
know
nice
if I would.
guy.
I don't know if I could do
You
that
could
to
not.
somebody.
You're
I-
pretty addicted to
I
your
would.
phone.
I would. Well, not that. It's like the privacy thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that would
you're the
get
Yeah,
only
you've got
one I think
terrible
I would
things on your
trust.
phone.
Yeah.
You've got terrible, terrible things
I
on
have
your phone.
terrible things on my phone. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they could use your X account.
I don't.
That's
yeah.
right.
I can't have anybody looking in my DMs on some of those group chats. Anyway. All right.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Before you get yourself in
Moving
trouble.
on here. Okay, here's one. Would you loan your car to an out-of-town guest visiting your home for the weekend?
0% chance. I am all right. Yeah, so
You're a car
I'm
guy. That's why I
I'm a
asked that
huge
one.
car guy. Yeah, so no, and in fact, we are going to the beach, and my wife's a teacher, and so she's going back to the classroom full time. It's been a few years, and so we just happened to schedule the beach trip on like the weekend that she's due back to go full time for class. So she's like going to go down Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday have to come back Monday night. And so we were trying to figure out like we've got 3 kids, a lot of beach stuff. Like how in the world are we going to make this work? I am not willing to drive my car to the beach. So I was going to have to like rent a second car or like borrow it or something like that. And so I'm actually going to be driving my in-laws' second car to the beach so that my car doesn't have to go.
Oh my
Although
gosh.
I will argue that it's not because I'm like trying to keep it super nice. It is, it's a very small 4-door sedan. And so it would also be quite useless because you could pack like 2 suitcases and it'd pretty much be full.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
sure.
But no, I wouldn't and it's a manual transmission. So 98% of people couldn't drive it anyway.
It's very convenient.
Yeah.
That's
Good-
why. It's
good
not because I'm mean,
excuses,
it's because it's
Jimmy.
manual. I'm thinking of them, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well done.
What kind of a car are we talking? What is this
Yeah,
car?
what
Do
is
you wanna
it?
share?
It's the most ridiculous name ever, but it's a CT4V Blackwing. So it's a Cadillac.
Okay.
And if you drove by one, you'd have no idea what it is, which is why I love it. It's a sleeper.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Well, that was personal loans. Well done.
Love it.
And
Did
so
I pass? Did I win?
sure. Yeah. You won my respect and admiration for sitting
appreciate
through that.
Not sure how well you fared with your wife, but
Yeah.
That's right. Now
That's
we
always
know a
up for
lot more
debate.
about you, though, that you are willing to share toothbrushes, but not your car.
or deodorant.
That's true.
But you're forthcoming with your phone. I was impressed by that.
Yeah, I was honest.
All right. Well, we've kept you for so long already. So we want to make sure that you get to talk about the things that are going on in your life and anything you want to discuss. I know you got a lot of things. You're a busy guy. So kind of give us a little quick rundown of what's going on you want people to know about.
Yeah, so things are interesting, right? So I still practice anesthesia, but then you mentioned the work that I do for Attend, co-founding that, which is super exciting. With my story, naturally, my North Star, my ethos has always been doing what's right for other doctors because a lot of us don't know what's going on. I didn't know what was going on back then, and so building a company that is actually doing what's best for people so that they can do what they do best, which is take care of patients. I'm incredibly passionate about, and so yeah, the Attend for Doctors app just launched. I mean, within like the last, 3 or 4 weeks. So super excited to help people with that. They can get help with their student loans or disability insurance, some of the topics we talked about today. And then, yeah, we're still hanging out at the Money Meets Medicine podcast, which you came on and,
Yep.
graced our presence with. And so if they like listening to podcasts and enjoy that, then they can head over there and, obviously enjoy
Definitely.
Misha and I
Absolutely.
banter about medicine. So yeah, super exciting things going on. But
And
there's a couple
that's
places they can check them out.
yeah, and that's helloattend.com. Is that right?
HelloAttend.com or Attend for Doctors. It's in the Apple App Store, which I always say that. And then like I'm gonna get like 14 emails from people that are like, but I have an Android.
Hmm.
That's right.
And I'm gonna be like, I hear you, like we're working on it, it's coming, but like
Gotcha.
95% of doctors have Apple.
So you recognize the problem there.
I'm a
So,
failure.
and that's
I can
attend
talk
as in
about
attending, like an attending physician. Attend.
ATTEND.
There you go. Well, Jimmy, thanks again for coming on. It's always a pleasure to thank you for making me feel uncomfortable by forcing us to talk about money. It's a very important thing.
It's good for you.
Yes, it's good. It's like exercise, but exercise just feels bad sometimes. But it's important and necessary, and we all need to be a little bit better at it.
Yes.
So thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, let's take a look at some of our. Take a listen. Do we listen?
Take a gander.
Take a listen. Let's take a
Stroll
listen
through
to some
memory
of
lane.
one of our medical stories from a listener. So we have Bridget, who says, I had to have a sleep study done a while back. It was my perfect sleep hell.
Oh no.
Perfect sleep. Everyone has a sleep hell.
Yeah.
Things that
Sleeping is
just
hard. The older you get, especially, it's harder to sleep. You got to have things just right.
it was too warm, too early, too bright, too noisy, with the college kids across the street drag racing and their bass thumping. Too weird having someone watching your every move.
That would be very
I have
weird.
had a sleep study, and it is not a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
You're connected to wires, and
Yeah. Which seems to defeat the purpose, don't you think? Wouldn't you want to study someone sleeping like in their natural,
yeah, you would think so.
like you want to study their normal sleep?
But then you gotta
Be in their house and watch them sleep? That's weird too.
yeah, exactly. Wake up, someone's standing over you, just watching you.
It's like having a toddler.
Since you're all hooked up for the study, they ask you to just speak up when you want to use the bathroom. In the night, I asked to get up, but they didn't hear the first time. I told the nurse or tech, and she said she'd turn up the microphone. Shortly after I got back in bed, I finally relaxed and let rip the loudest fart in
Oh
ever,
no.
and immediately hear on the comm, I'll be right over. I had to explain to the nurse that no, I didn't call out, I just farted.
Oh no.
They thought the fart was asking for help, which could have been in a slightly different way. But what an awkward thing to have a
Oh.
sleep study. It's like, it's not something that we expect to be monitored doing,
Yeah.
right? But I guess
Here,
it's
go to
important.
sleep when you're your most vulnerable and you're
Yeah.
supposed to be relaxed. But first, let's put all these uncomfortable things on you, and also a stranger's gonna watch you while you sleep.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bridget, for that wonderful story. And shout out to sleep medicine doctors for putting people through that. It's important, though. And what a fun episode! What a fun guest!
Yeah, learn some
Having
things.
Dr. Jimmy Turner on,
Yeah.
talking about finances.
Yes, people shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. That's how we learn more about it. That's how we,
Yeah,
make things more equitable. If everybody would just talk.
he's right.
about
There's like
it,
a little
not
bit of
hide it.
like a taboo type of thing, and not
Yeah.
necessarily talking about like telling everybody how much you make, but just
Right.
like talking about what you do with your money and like giving tips and learning
Right.
from each other. But it does. It can feel, I don't know, overwhelming. It can feel like it can make you feel bad about yourself, I think, if it's not done the right way, because you feel like you're not doing the right things with your money.
Oh, right.
know?
Yes, especially for you, like, ambitious, overachieving perfectionists.
That applies to you too. You just described yourself just as much as you described me.
Oh, I know. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there should be any reason not to talk about things like that. I'm not a fan of taboos in general. I think things should be able to be discussed.
And if you guys have any stories about any funny, like, financial-based stories, any, like, I don't know, mid-level marketing schemes.
Oh, gosh.
Anything fun and interesting and exciting related to personal finance and medicine, please let us know. There's lots of ways to reach out to us. You can email us.
You can do what now?
Email us. Email us, knockknockhi@human-content.com. You can visit us on all the social media platforms. We're on everything. You can also hang out with our Human Content Podcast family on Instagram and TikTok at Human Content Pods. Gonna have a barbecue over there later. Maybe a little get together, a little family reunion every so often. It's gonna be great. Also, a shout out to the great listeners. All of you. You're all wonderful listeners. Well, most of you. Like 99.9% of you are wonderful listeners. I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that's just
Some
like
stinkers
seething,
in
angry.
there somewhere.
But
They're like hate listening.
Yeah, so, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's always somebody,
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you all for leaving the wonderful feedback and reviews. We love that. We love hearing what you have to say. If you subscribe and comment on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube, we can give you a shout out. Like Mickey Howard 5791 on YouTube said, I'm a musician / former music teacher and cellist. But I've always been super interested in all things medical, so I found Dr. Shaban's story fascinating.
Dr. DeShower, the violin MD.
Violin MD, who's the violinist and / rheumatologist. And I literally listened to this podcast to and from my appointment with my ophthalmologist. Look at that. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Perfect timing.
Thank you for going to see your ophthalmologist.
You should do the same.
I should see an ophthalmologist. Who am I going to see? My partner? I
Yes,
guess?
you
All
work
right.
with like
I do
10
work with them.
ophthalmologists.
That's right. Any of them could do it. Full video episodes of this podcast are up every week on my YouTube channel at Glaucomfleckens. We also have a Patreon, lots of fun perks, bonus episodes, or react to medical shows and movies. Hang out with other members of the Knock Knock High community. We are growing rapidly, and we're active there. We're interacting. Early ad-free episode access, interactive Q&A live stream events, get-togethers, much more. Patreon.com/Glaucomfleckens or go to Glaucomfleckens.com. Speaking of Patreon community perks, new member shout out to Mistress Macabre. I love that name.
Yes, I
Great.
want to know more.
Mysterious. Shout out, of course, to all the Jonathans: Patrick, Lucia C, Sharon S, Omar, Edward K, Stephen G, Roskbox, Jonathan F, Marion W, Mr. Granddaddy, Caitlin C, Brianna L, Dr. J, Chaver W, Jonathan A, Leah D, KL, Rachel L, and Ann P.
I want to see if you can do all of those
To you all.
in one breath next time.
Yeah, I think I could do that. Maybe not. I don't know. It's a growing list. Patreon roulette. Random shout out to someone on the emergency medicine tier. So shout out to Dan K for being a patron.
Thanks, Dan K.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you all for listening. We're your hosts, Will and Kristen Flannery, also known as the Glaucomfleckens. A special thanks to our guest, Dr. Jimmy Turner. Executive producers are Will Flannery, Kristen Flannery, Aaron Courtney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brook. Editor and engineer Jason Portiza. Our music is by Omar Benzvi. To learn about our Knock Knock Highs program disclaimer, ethics policies, mission verification, license terms, and release terms, go to Glaucomfleckens.com. Reach out to us at knockknockhigh@human-content.com with any questions, concerns. What could you possibly be concerned about? We're perfect on this podcast. Or fun medical puns or jokes or limericks. Knock Knock High is a human content production.
Knock, knock. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcast.